And we're now just 2 days away from this election's only French language debate, and last night the Liberal and Conservative leaders already underwent a crucial test in Quebec. Pierre, Poilievre and Carney both appeared on the hyper-popular Radio-Canada talk show Tout, monde, parle. The show attracts up to 1 million viewers in a province with 78 seats, the second most in Canada. And there was a lot to lose for Carney and a lot to gain for his rivals, because since January 6, the CBC's poll tracker shows the Bloc Québécois dropping from 36.6% support to just 22.3%. And on a directly opposite trajectory, the Liberals have gone from 20.9% to 43%. The Conservatives continue to hover around a quarter of that support. Okay, joining me to discuss what last night's appearances and Wednesday's debate can mean for Quebec, I have two bureau chiefs. Joel-Denis Bellavance is the parliamentary bureau chief for La Presse, and Louis Blouin, he's back from Montreal for 1 day only, the parliamentary bureau chief for Radio-Canada. Gang, good to see you. Louis, let's start with Tout, monde, parle, the appearance there. This is a must-do every election. Big test for Carney and for Pierre Poilievre. What's your assessment of how it went for them?
Well, how serious it is, you know, his advisors, some of them told us that he prepped for days for that apparition. Because he knows that he's playing big, and he looked nervous at the debut, at the beginning of the interview, that's for sure. And he was, more technical in his answers. And, at the end, I think he became more natural. But he lost himself in a few answers, on Bill 21, his opposition to Bill 96 too, because of the clause, the notwithstanding clause.
I would guess discussing secularism laws, language laws, and the notwithstanding clause in your second language is tough.
Quite a mix.
Yeah.
See? Yeah. Even me. So anyway, so that was that part was, and his advisors were telling him, trying to keep the answers short, and it was not always possible. But he did score some points on cultural references with Quebec. He was asked about the humorist group, the stand-up comedian group that the host was part of, Roch et Belles Oreilles, and he nailed that answer to finish the interview. And I think we could hear his advisors in the back saying, "Oh my God, he did it!" There was some kind of
and that's important to the Quebec audience, because there's nothing like this in English Canada.
No,
right?
And it's because you need to know Quebec, you need to show that you have a link with Quebecers, that you understand them. So that was, it could look frivolous, but it's important in the understanding of the province, its culture. So I think there was no big damage done. I don't think it was very shiny as a performance yesterday, but they just wanted to avoid a catastrophe, and they did. And Pierre Poilievre came out fairly calm, less partisan too, when he did his interview. He not even talked about the Liberal Carney lost decade once. He kind of referred to their years indirectly. He also had some cultural references. La Petite Vie, it's a TV show that was very popular in Quebec. So I think he came out the way his advisors wanted him to do. So I don't see a big turn in the road in Quebec with those two interviews.
JD, I watched it, didn't understand a word. But, Pierre Poilievre looked very relaxed. He smiled. He got a bunch of laughs, and Mark Carney, it was a more serious sort of vibe. But, what's your thoughts on how it all went?
That was a good occasion to show your personalities to Quebecers. And that was, to me, like the first interviews of the candidates who are, who want to be Prime Minister of Canada. So I guess this, in terms of personality, I think they came across very well. I would say that Mr. Carney's French, this was the best interview he gave so far, since I've been following him since he became leader of the Liberal Party. His French was adequate, no mistakes, and you could tell that, as my friend Louis just mentioned, he was told to shorten his answers, and they were more to the point. But I would say that I would give a slight edge to Pierre Poilievre at the end of the night. Why? Because Mr. Poilievre managed to talk about issues that are dear to Quebecers, cost of living, the rising cost of housing, and that the last few years made it impossible for people to afford things. And he's proposing change. And I think he wanted also to put to rest that he's a mini Canadian Trump. He was asked bluntly about that. Are you a Trump in Canada? And said, no, we don't have the same origins. I'm a modest family from mère monoparentale, single mother. And then we had trouble making ends meet. So he came across as a simple guy, but this was a time to showcase their personality more than anything else.
Right. The Conservatives are about 24% in Quebec, just under that in our poll tracker. They have 9-10 seats. So there's less for them to lose, a lot for them to gain. But, JD, this sort of is the the precursor to the debate on Wednesday night, which, depending on what happens in hockey the next couple of days, could be up against a must-win Montreal Canadian to get into the playoffs game. So Patrice has got to be nervous about that. But JD, I mean, what does this tell us? Like, when you look ahead to the debate, what are your expectations for that based on what we saw in Tout, monde, parle?
Well, I think this was a practice for a rehearsal for both leaders, and I think the pressure was immense on Mr. Carney. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in anybody's shoes to be on that show because, as you mentioned, the audience is quite big. The questions can come from nowhere and hit you in the forehead like a 2x4. So you need to be ready. And he was ready. Mr. Carney, as Louis mentioned, managed to name the humorist group Rock et Belles Oreilles. I almost fell off my chair when I heard him say that.
Me too.
It was in his briefing book.
I can imagine.
Because I don't think I don't think three weeks ago, Mr. Carney knew who was Rock et Belles Oreilles.
But so Louis, get your thoughts because on the French language debate, and then I'm going to get up and play with them.
I think it's going to be a way more challenging experience for Mark Carney for sure, because all these subjects, Bill 21, Bill 96, will come back as big attacks on him.
And Blanchette will be there.
Yes, it will be way tougher for him, and he has also to but they have Blanchette and Poilievre. They have to remain prudent, not to hit too hard either, because they might paint him as a victim at the end of the day, and they know that, and they know they have to measure the way they will hit.
There is some natural sympathy right now for Mr. Carney because he's trying to learn more French, and so you got to be.
He's making an honest effort, and people are having some.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I want to break down a little bit. This is sort of how the new Quebec ridings with the vote last time overlaid. You can see this is Bloc Québécois blue. This is Conservative blue. But just zero in here, the Greater Montreal area, like guys like. The Liberals dominate this island, right? You've got 2 block seats. This is LaSalle that they lost in the by-election. That's the NDP seat. Louis, when you look at this is where the Liberals are trying to push out, right, to the north and south shore of Montreal, and that's where the Bloc are trying to hold. And this could really determine whether that Liberal number on election day begins with a 3 or with a 4, right? Like, what's the dynamic here?
So most of the Liberal potential growth in Quebec is around Montreal,
right,
North Shore, South Shore, and there's going to be big fights with the Bloc Québécois there, and that's where it's going to happen in Quebec if it has to happen for them in the province. So if you look at ridings on the South Shore like Longueuil-Saint-Hubert, they would want to flip that for sure. Also, La Prairie. That's the Alain Terrien's seat. He's the House leader for the Bloc.
So that's a big name in the Bloc Québécois.
Yeah, and he is in trouble, and he is knocking right now on thousands and thousands of doors to try and catch up because it won't be easy for him. Also, North Shore, if you look at Terrebonne, if you look at Repentigny, also, it's not safe for the Bloc right now. So these are going to be races that will be very, very symbolic. That's where it needs to happen. And it's important for the Liberals because if they have a potential growth of 10, 15 seats in Quebec, that could help get their majority if they want it. So there's a way through Quebec to get there if something moves elsewhere in the country, but that's where it's going to happen.
So JD, if you look at this, I mean, look, I know the Liberals just lost a by-election in Montreal where the Prime Minister from Montreal was so unpopular he couldn't campaign. In Montreal, things are different now because you got a central banker from Alberta, obviously, and that plays in Montreal better than the Prime Minister did. But the polls right now would suggest the Liberals are going to break out here, right?
Yes.
Like they've got a floor of about 34, 35 seats. Do you think they can get into the 40s with reasonably?
Well, it's a distinct possibility because of the Bloc Québécois support that is going right now to the Liberal Party. And I'm told that the Bloc Québécois candidates and the MPs who are knocking on doors, they're hearing a similar discourse, similar reflections on voters at the doorstep. And it reminds them of 2011. What happened in 2011?
The orange wave.
Exactly. What will happen this time? They expect and they fear it might be a red wave this time because of the current context dominated by one person, Donald Trump, who's obviously having a big impact in this campaign.
Okay, this was acting up a bit today, but I want to have a look at the Quebec City area. Oh, see, this is it. There we go.
Always complicated in Quebec City.
Yeah, exactly. But this, look, you've got a couple of Conservatives, and there's between Quebec City and Montreal, we've got Trois-Rivières. There's also the Berthier-Masconanger riding, where Ruth Ellen Brousseau, who people would know is the MP from Vegas.
Yep.
She is coming back to run for the NDP this time.
That's a way to put it.
I mean, when we zoom out, well, she was in Vegas when she won in that orange wave, right?
Exactly.
But when we zoom out, I mean, we look at Quebec. I mean, Louis, I know the Gaspésie. This is something like what should we be watching for quickly, sort of beyond that greater Montreal area? Because that's kind of the ball game for the most seats in Quebec.
Yeah, one that we have to look is the Trois-Rivières riding. You know,
Right.
is it going to flip? It's a three-way race. It's one of the only three-way races in
Trois-Rivières
Quebec.
right there,
Yeah.
right?
So
And that's
good.
Champagne's riding right there.
Exactly, right on the side. So that could be very symbolic. Berthier-Masquinongé, could we see a second NDP MB in Quebec? You know, Alexandre Boulris feels very lonely in the last few years. So that could be another one. And also Quebec City, that's where the Conservatives might try to do some advance in Beauport-Limoilou.
In Trois-Rivières, the former Trois-Rivières mayor is trying for the third time to get elected. Under
That's
the
Yves
Conservative.
Lévesque, right?
Yeah, Yves
The
Lévesque,
Conservative?
exactly.
Yeah.
And the Conservatives, they feel that this should be a blue riding. So they're putting a lot of effort.
The Liberals
to win.
lost their candidate there, right? Remember, they had a candidate in Trois-Rivières who failed to disclose a DUI, drunk driving conviction in the past. It was dropped.
And they have a candidate from the Outaouais who's running there right now. So a former member, high official
Right.
in global affairs. Sorry,
Right, but the
running there.
Outaouais, that's the Ottawa region, right?
Exactly,
That's not. That's a long way from
exactly.
Trois-Rivières. I don't know
Long way.
Quebec like you
No
guys do,
roots,
but
no
that's a
roots
tough
there.
one for
No,
them.
no, and in
Yeah.
Trois-Rivières, it's very important to get known in the community and to be a central figure. So maybe he has an edge there.
So it's mainly a battle between the Bloc Québécois and the Conservative Party in that riding.
Okay, so just as a last point from each of you, like if you have to guess right now where Quebec goes, I mean, Louis, do you think unless the debate is catastrophic for Mark Carney, they're up? Do they go over 40? Do you think they get to 40 plus right now?
I think if there's one leader who can rebound from the French debate is Yves-François Blanchet.
Exactly.
And remember what happened in the last two elections. At the end of the campaign, he was able to gain some momentum. So that could block the effect of the Liberals at this point. But honestly, what I'm told is that some blockist strategists are very worried because they know that older voters are going to Mark Carney because they're worried about the economy, about their pension and all. So he's fighting against a very strong feeling, insecurity feeling these days. So we'll see where it can
Older
go.
voters are more likely to vote as well. Jamie?
Exactly. And last night, Mr. Yves-François Blanchet was very much active on X, trying to sort of criticize the performance of Mark Carney and Monsieur Poilievre on Tout, monde, parle. So I guess he was a bit jealous that he was not there yet.
He's
But
there next week.
He gets last word, though.
Yes,
He gets
last
last word
word.
on
That's the
Tout,
last
monde,
word.
parle, right?
But at that time, the jello might be, holding
might be set.
because it's Easter weekend and people will be talking around ham and whatever.
And the
separately.
anticipation vote will have started.
Exactly.
Friday.
But, Easter Sunday is a time for resurrections and miracles. So who knows? All right. Louis Blouin and Joel-Denis Bellavance, always appreciate it, gang. Thanks for being here.